Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this episode 3832 and today's date is February 3rd, 2026, and the title of the episode is Tariff Engine is Getting Stronger, Gold and Silver are Shining. Nothing can stop this. The problem? You never know the full story until after. After, it's too late. And here's the brutal truth. You can't protect yourself after. You have to be ready now. All this uncertainty, the chaos, the warning signs, maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's just noise. Maybe it's just the beginning of something bigger. Nobody knows for sure, but waiting to find out, that's how people get hurt. Physical gold and silver aren't just investments, they're preparation. They're the foundation of real protection. My friends at Noble Gold Investments have been helping Americans protect themselves for nearly a decade. No pressure, no games, just proven insight when it matters most. Look, you're either prepared or you're not. Which one will you be when everything changes overnight? Visit X22Gold.com to receive your free wealth protection kit. That is X22Gold.com. And remember, the prepared don't panic, or just click the link in the description. And remember, past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult your financial advisor before making investment decisions. Let's get right into the economic collapse financial news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, the private West Central Bank, the World Economic Forum, you could see that they are now losing control in regards to the creation of currency, control of the economy, Trump's parallel economic system. They're losing control all over the place. And when you look at the Federal Reserve, you can see when May comes around, they're going to lose complete and utter control of the central bank system in this country. And this is going to be a huge problem for the deep state, the central bankers, because you have to remember their entire agenda is to do what? Their entire agenda is to bring us into the Great Reset, the Green New Scam. And if you don't have control over the Federal Reserve, this is going to be a major, major problem. So if they do not have control over the Federal Reserve, what do you think they might do? Now, out in Europe, you can see they're already going after X. They already have a censorship machine. They're already preparing to control the narrative. Why? Why would they do this right now? Actually, they started in January, but they're continually pushing and pushing and pushing. And you have to ask the simple question, why would they be doing this right now? Because they want control over the narrative when they try to do something. Remember, if you lose control and you're not working within the system and you're outside of the system, you have to do something to the system to convince people that the entire system is collapsing. And I do believe this is what they're going to try to do in the end. They'll probably try some type of cyber attack if they can kick it off the ground, just so they can blame everything on Trump. They did this going back to 2020. They released COVID. They tried to down the economy. They tried to destroy the stock market. It didn't work. This time around, they're going to try to do the same thing, but it's even worse because now they don't have control over anything. Trump and the Patriots are going to have control over everything. And Trump's tariff engine is getting stronger and stronger every single day, which poses a huge problem on the central bankers. Because you have to remember, if you go back to 2020 or before that, Trump didn't have a tariff engine. Yes, he was using tariffs, but he didn't have a tariff engine. He didn't have an energy engine. He didn't have a technology engine. He didn't have the gold card engine. He didn't have any of these things. So it was a lot easier for them to actually try to bring down the economy, even though they failed. And now, without having control of the Federal Reserve, with Trump building this tariff engine, this makes it even more difficult. So they're left with probably one alternative to down the financial institutions. And the only way to do that is with some type of cyber attack. And we'll have to watch that very, very carefully because, again, they're going to become very, very desperate in the end. Are they going to succeed? I don't believe so. And what do we see already happening right now? We're already starting to see gold and silver. They're starting to shine. Now, yes, Trump made an announcement with Warsh, and the deep state, the central bankers, I do believe they use this as a trigger to bring down gold, silver. Bitcoin is starting to creep up once again. And basically, no matter what they do, they're not going to be able to stop what is coming. We have to remember, Trump and his team, I do believe they're moving forward to bring us back to sound money. I do believe they're bringing us back to the Constitution and eventually going to remove the entire central bank system. And that's where I do believe we are all headed. And you could see that these people are going to try to push back with everything they have, but in the end, it's all going to fail. Just like when you look at Germany and you look at the Green New Scam around the world, you can see that they were definitely setting it up where China was going to be a powerhouse, where China was going to be the reserve currency, where China was going to be the manufacturing hub, the financial hub of the entire world. Because when you start to look at Germany, you start to look at the other countries, even California and New York and other states, they were moving away from actual energy sources, and they were trying to bring in windmills and solar panels. You saw this in New Jersey, you saw it in California, you see it in many, many states. But when you look at Germany, you could see they decided to get rid of their nuclear plants. They decided to get rid of their coal-powered plants, and they were trying to move to solar and energy. At the same time, China was doing the opposite. Hans put this out and said, Germans did this because of Fukushima. There was this collective psychosis at the time, even though it was an extremely unlikely cascade of events and only one person died years later. But that's what the psychosis does. You shut out all reason and barrel ahead with pure stupidity. I don't believe it's just Fukushima. I do believe this was all part of the Green New Scam, where they decided to shut down their nuclear power generation. And as Germany shut down their nuclear power generation, what did China do? They created more nuclear power. So they did the opposite of Germany. That should tell you everything you need to know. No longer is this a conspiracy. And now you could see that those countries, those states that are following the Green New Scam, they're going to implode under the weight of stupidity. That's what we're going to see. And we're going to see a lot of people, especially here in the United States, move out of the state. Out in Europe, you're going to see a lot of people and companies move out of that country. Because if you can't produce energy, nobody's going to stay there. And we're already starting to see this happen. And in this country, the deep state players, the central bankers, the Ds, they created ridiculous majors in college. Most people don't even have to go to college. Most people should be going and looking for skills. So they created these ridiculous programs, these ridiculous majors. People went ahead and they took, gender studies and all this other stuff. There's no jobs out there. And they have a huge amount of student loan debt. And once they finished school, they started to realize, holy crap, I have $100,000 or I have $50,000 or $70,000, and there's no jobs whatsoever. I can't make a living. So a lot of people had to go to Starbucks. A lot of people had to go to retail. A lot of people went to all these different jobs where you didn't have to go to college to get these jobs. And now you could see that people, they can't pay back the loans. This is why I do believe Biden, during his time, and he thought it was going to work as we approach the elections in 2024, he was removing the burden of paying back the student loans because he knew that the majority of the kids that went to college, they won't be able to find jobs. They won't be able to pay back their loans. And they didn't want these people to go against them. But what do we see happening right now? We see that these children, they are now held accountable. You decided to go study this. You decided to take these majors. And now look, you have these loans and there's no jobs. You were sold a false bill of goods. Kobisi Letter on X put this out and said, U.S. student loan delinquencies are exploding. The number of student loan borrowers that are severely delinquent is up to a record 3.62 million. The number of federal loan recipients, 271 plus days past due, is now 8 times higher than the pre-2020 average. This comes as the grace period ended in June 2025, when missed payments began appearing on credit reports. Meanwhile, the percentage of student loans transitioning into 90-day plus of serious delinquencies is up to 14.3%, an all-time high. This significantly exceeds the 2013 peak of 10.5% and 2008 levels of 7.5%. The student loan crisis is accelerating. But I do believe that most likely this will be mitigated because as jobs are being created and we're starting to see a lot of manufacturing jobs, a lot of corporations are coming back to this country, there's going to be a lot of job openings. Now, some of these people do not have training to do anything, so hopefully they can get into a training program and they can actually work maybe on the floor in a corporation or some type of job. But with all these jobs opening up, this will give the people a chance to make money and pay back their student loans. Instead of just saying, oh, you decided to go to this college, you decided to take this ridiculous major, and you know what? Let everyone else pay for it. Nope. You have to be held accountable and you have to work to pay this off. We all make mistakes in our lives. And nobody is there to say, okay, you know what? I'll just cover it up for you. Don't worry about it. No, you learn from your mistakes. The problem, you never know the full story until after. After it's too late. And here's the brutal truth. You can't protect yourself after. You have to be ready now. All this uncertainty, the chaos, the warning signs, maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's just noise. Maybe it's just the beginning of something bigger. Nobody knows for sure, but waiting to find out, that's how people get hurt. Physical gold and silver aren't just investments. They're preparation. They're the foundation of real protection. My friends at Noble Gold Investments have been helping Americans protect themselves for nearly a decade. No pressure, no games, just proven insight when it matters most. Look, you're either prepared or you're not. Which one will you be when everything changes overnight? Visit X22Gold.com to receive your free wealth protection kit. That is X22Gold.com. And remember, the prepared don't panic, or just click the link in the description. And remember, past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult your financial advisor before making investment decisions. Sometimes people invest in the stock market. Ooh, that was a wrong investment. I lost money. Sometimes people take a job that they hate and they decide, you know what, I'm not doing that again. Sometimes you go to school and you think this is going to be great and you realize I should have done a little bit more research to find out if there were actually jobs that I could actually take after school. And once again, this is a good wake-up call for everyone because, again, it's about time that people are held accountable for the actions that they have taken. Now, the other thing that we could see is that Trump's tariff system, it's really starting to take off right now. And it's getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and it's delivering a manufacturing boom to this country. And yes, it's going to go through the roof as things really start to pick up, because you have to remember the factories right now, they're being built. Yes, there's a lot of construction jobs that are going to be added. And then once the factories are built, you're going to see a lot of jobs come online. And it doesn't mean once they finish like 3 factories, that's it. More and more factories are going to be built. So this is going to be a continuous operation that isn't going to end, because you have to remember what Trump is doing. Remember, going back to 1971 when we came off the gold standard, what did the deep state central bankers do? They moved the manufacturers out of this country slowly but surely. They didn't do it on one day and said, hey, everyone's gone. They did it very, very slowly, very, very methodically. Why did they do this? Because the value of the currency was declining, which means you cannot produce goods here, and you have to move the production out of this country. You have to move it into other countries where people are getting paid pennies on the dollar, basically slave labor, and then ship the items back here with no tariffs, using loopholes so you're not charged, to keep the illusion alive that the economy is fine and manufacturing is fine. Keep the people purchasing the goods. Because if you kept the manufacturers in this country and the currency continually declined, what would happen? All the products would be very, very expensive. And people would scratch their heads and say, what is going on here? Something is wrong. But you have to remember, over time, what happens? The inflation, the devaluation of the currency, catches up with everything. And soon you will need payment plans just to buy a phone, or maybe an accessory to a phone. Actually, I don't know if you've ever been into one of the stores where they sell your phones and they have all these different products. A lot of them have payment plans that you have to pay things out. Why do you think we went from financing a car to leasing a car? Why do you think they extended the finance terms, the lease terms, you name it? Because they realized, wait a minute, the value of the currency is continually declining, and you need more of those pieces of paper to purchase or make the payments. So we have to, take this and spread it out over a very long period of time. This is why Trump wants to introduce 50-year mortgages, because, again, it would make your monthly payments a lot less, while he basically removes the central bank system. Because think about it. If you're paying a very small mortgage and it's a fixed rate, and Trump returns the buying power to you, slowly but surely, removing your income tax. If you're making, 70, 80,000, you had to pay at least 20 something thousand dollars in taxes. Can you imagine if you got $20,000 back, or you get to keep $20,000 because you're not paying income tax, and you have a fixed mortgage? Would you feel really good? Because would you feel like, wow, I have a lot more money and this mortgage is not that big of a deal anymore? Well, that's what it feels like when you get your buying power back. And think about when Trump pays down the debt, more and more of your buying power is going to come back, which is going to give you buying power, which means that fixed mortgage is going to feel like nothing in the end. But when you look at the tariffs, you can see factory orders are up by 5.5%. Peter Sayon, PhD, put this out and said, American steel just exceeded Japan for the first time in 30 years. First American aluminum factory in 40 years. John Deere, Whirlpool, Jeep, and Apple are all coming home. Absolutely, because what do you think is happening? The entire economic system is now transitioning into a Trump/people economy. It's moving away from the central bank. Remember, they are definitely losing their power because, once again, as we remove Powell, who's taking orders from Soros and many other peoples above him, the central bankers, and Trump brings the guy that he wants into the position and eventually, hopefully, gets rid of Cook, he's going to take control of the central bank system. And once you have control of the central bank system and he wants to lower rates and he wants to be competitive around the world, the central bank is not going to go against him. They're going to work with Trump. And while they're working with Trump, they're going to start the process of restructuring the entire central bank system so we can then restructure and bring it into the Treasury, which will then allow us to go back to sound money and go back to the Constitution. Because you have to remember, the central bankers, they came into existence in 1913. This is the third one in this country. The first one, the charter ran out and Congress said, no way. The second one, Andrew Jackson, ran on the platform saying, I'm going to get rid of the central bank. He won. Yes, they tried to assassinate him. They failed. And now we have the third one. Trump now is going to remove the third Federal Reserve. It's strange that they tried to assassinate him just like they did Andrew Jackson, because they knew exactly what he was planning to do. His plan is to go back to sound money. His plan is to remove the central bank system. Because once again, there is absolutely no reason that we have to borrow currency to keep the government operational. And there is absolutely no reason why we have to go internally to fund the entire system. And remember, this is not a people system. This is a central bank system. This is a deep state system. This is what they created. And what's going to happen here is we're no longer going to go internally. We're going to go externally. And we're not going to borrow money. We're going to have currency that's already in circulation come back to the United States, which does not cause inflation whatsoever. And while all this is happening, what are you going to see? You're going to see gold. You're going to see silver start to make moves. Actually, gold is now approaching $5,000 again. Silver is moving up to 100 again. I do believe this time they're going to go much, much higher. Same thing with Bitcoin. So watch gold, watch silver, watch Bitcoin, because I do believe this is the direction we're heading in. Yes, when you step back and you take a 40,000-foot view, actually, all you got to do this is go back to the stock market, zoom out to 30 years. What do you see? Do this with gold, do this with silver, do it with Bitcoin. The trajectory is up. And I do believe this is exactly what's going to happen as we move forward, because Trump is going to show the people the way. He's going to show that the central bank system is not a benefit to the people. And he's going to say it's time to give the people back their buying power. It's time to separate ourselves from the central bank system and bring the entire country back to what our founding fathers really wanted. They wanted us to use this sound money. They wanted us to be in control of the creation of currency, in control of the economy. They wanted the free market to dictate what interest rates would be. They wanted the free market to dictate what the stock market would do. They didn't want a centralized entity controlling everything. And everything now is about to change. And Trump now is changing it all. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.